A little boy asks Pam Bondi about Islam. What she says will warm your heart. Imagine a room full of people buzzing with chatter, when suddenly a little boy steps forward to ask a question that stops everyone in their tracks. That's exactly what happened when Ethan, no older than 7, walked up to Pam Bondi and asked her about Islam. What she said next will remind you of the power of kindness and why understanding starts with just one conversation. It all began at a community gathering in Florida, a place alive with families, laughter, and shared stories. Pam Bondi, known for her years as the state's attorney general, stood there speaking to the crowd. She'd spent much of her career working on justice, fairness, and bringing communities closer together. But today wasn't about policies or politics. It was about connection. In the crowd stood a young boy named Ethan. He couldn't have been more than 7, but his eyes sparkled with curiosity. Lately, he'd heard whispers, words like Islam, that seemed confusing and sometimes even scary. At school, on TV, even among friends, these words carried weight, but their meaning felt unclear. So when Pam invited questions from the audience, Ethan didn't hesitate. His small hand shot up, trembling slightly as he stepped forward with the microphone. "Miss Bondi," he began, his voice soft but steady, "what is Islam?" The room fell silent. It was a big question, especially in a world where religion can often divide rather than unite. But Pam didn't skip a beat. Leaning down to meet Ethan's gaze, she smiled warmly and said, "That's a wonderful question." She went on to explain that Islam is one of the world's major religions, practiced by millions of people around the globe. Muslims, she told him, believe in peace, kindness, and helping others. They pray 5 times a day, honor their families, and strive to live good lives. Her tone was gentle, making sure every word reached not just Ethan but everyone listening. But this was only the beginning. What happened next would leave a lasting mark, not just on Ethan but on everyone who heard the story. Ethan's face lit up as Pam spoke. For weeks, maybe even months, he'd carried this question inside him, unsure if anyone would take the time to explain it properly. But here was someone important, someone respected, taking his little question seriously. And not only that, she made it sound simple, relatable, and kind. Pam didn't stop there. She told Ethan how Islam, like many other religions, teaches love and respect for others. "Imagine," she said, "if everyone treated each other the way they'd want to be treated themselves. That's what so many faiths are all about, including Islam." Ethan nodded thoughtfully, clutching the microphone tighter as he absorbed her words. Then, almost shyly, he asked another question. "So does that mean Muslims are good people?" The sincerity in his voice melted hearts across the room. Pam smiled warmly and replied, "Of course they are. Just like Christians, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, anyone who follows their beliefs with kindness and respect is doing something beautiful." By now, the crowd wasn't just listening. They were leaning in, captivated by the exchange. Parents exchanged glances, some nodding approvingly while others wiped away tears. In a world often divided by fear and misunderstanding, this moment felt different. It felt hopeful. What happened afterward showed just how powerful these small moments could be. Ethan's mom later shared that her son came home brimming with excitement. "Mom," he exclaimed, running into the house, "I learned about Islam today, and guess what? It's all about being nice to people." The next day at school, during show and tell, Ethan proudly recounted everything Pam had told him. He explained what Islam meant, how its followers prayed, and why kindness was such a big part of their lives. Some kids listened quietly, while others peppered him with questions. But through it all, Ethan remained confident, sharing what he'd learned with the same clarity Pam had offered him. Word of Ethan's bravery spread quickly. A local reporter caught wind of the story and decided to interview both him and Pam. When asked why she'd taken the time to answer Ethan's question so thoroughly, Pam shrugged humbly. "Kids like Ethan remind us how important it is to teach understanding early on," she said. "If we can help them see the good in every person, no matter their background or beliefs, then we're building a better future for everyone." And yet, despite all the attention, the heart of the story remained unchanged. A curious boy, a caring leader, and a lesson that transcended age, culture, and belief. The true power of Pam Bondi's words became clear in the days and weeks that followed. What started as a simple question from a little boy turned into a movement of sorts, a reminder that understanding begins with curiosity and grows through kindness. People across the country began sharing stories sparked by Ethan's courage. Teachers started conversations in classrooms, parents had talks with their kids about faith, culture, and acceptance. Even social media lit up with posts celebrating the moment. One particularly touching story came from a Muslim family living just outside Tampa. They wrote an open letter thanking both Ethan and Pam for shining a light on their faith in such a positive way. For so long, they explained, we've felt misunderstood or judged because of our religion. But seeing someone like Pam Bondi take the time to explain Islam with such care reminded us that there are still good people out there, people willing to listen and learn. Ethan's newfound confidence didn't stop either. Inspired by his experience, he decided to keep learning about different religions and cultures. His mom joked that he'd become her little ambassador, always eager to share what he'd discovered with anyone who'd listen. At school, his classmates started calling him the professor, though not in a teasing way, in a proud one. He'd earned their respect by showing them something valuable. It's okay to ask questions, even if you're afraid you won't understand the answers right away. Meanwhile, Pam Bondi found herself reflecting on the impact of that brief conversation. In interviews, she admitted that she hadn't thought much about it at first. It was just another day, another chance to connect with someone. But hearing how far Ethan's story had traveled made her realize something profound. Sometimes, she said, the smallest moments can make the biggest difference. All it takes is one person choosing to be kind, patient, and open. The climax of the story came months later, when Ethan was invited to speak at a community event honoring diversity and inclusion. Standing on stage, barely tall enough to reach the microphone, he looked out at the crowd and smiled. I used to think Islam was scary, he confessed, but now I know it's just about being nice to people, and that's something everyone can do. His speech brought the house down, not with applause but with silence. A deep, meaningful silence filled with nods, smiles, and more than a few tears. It wasn't just Ethan's words that moved people, it was the realization that change doesn't always come from grand gestures or sweeping reforms. Sometimes, it starts with a child asking a question, and someone brave enough to answer honestly. As the event wrapped up, Pam joined Ethan on stage for a photo. Wrapping an arm around his shoulders, she leaned down and whispered, "You're going to change the world someday, kiddo." Ethan grinned, looking every bit like the hero he already was. And maybe that's the most important lesson of all. None of us knows which questions will lead to breakthroughs, which conversations will spark change, or which moments will stay with us forever. All we can do is approach each other with open hearts and minds, ready to learn and to teach. So the next time you hear a child ask a tough question, remember Ethan, remember Pam, and remember that sometimes the simplest answers hold the deepest truths.